everyone. I want to welcome you to the fourth installment of our virtual panel event series sponsored by the graduate programs at Daemen College. I'm your moderator today, Emily Burns-Perryman, Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Daemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I begin with introductions, I want to first point out the various privileges that some of us on this panel possess. These privileges are important to recognize as we navigate our way through a global pandemic that has caused many to lose their jobs and income and suffer unimaginable tragedy. Also, we can't ignore the ongoing racial and social justice movements and unrest in our country that has been heightened by the pandemic and making inequality all that more apparent. We recognize those of us on this panel who possess privilege, are currently employed, and find ourselves, our families and loved ones, healthy at this time. We're very much thinking of those who do not and want to ensure that acknowledgement of this privilege in our lives helps inform this very important discussion. So with that said, I'd like to begin with introductions to our panelists today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tell us your name and where you join us from. So first we'll start with Alexis.
Hi, I'm Alexis Barad Cutler. I am a writer, a speaker, and a mom of two, and I'm the founder of a platform called Not Safe for Mom Group, where we are a community in real life and currently virtually because of where we are right now, for stigma-free, completely judgmental, non-judgmental, honest conversation about more of the less welcome narratives around motherhood, where we discuss the taboo topics that you may not be able to talk about in your regular communities or motherhood circles. And we really welcome all kinds of conversation in a very safe and judgment-free environment. And we do that via anonymous conversations that are had pretty much 24/7, mainly via Instagram.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have some of those conversations today as well. Next is Amanda.
Thank you, Emily. My name is Amanda Gross. I'm the Chief of Staff at Daemen College. I'm also a mother of two, and looking forward to the conversation with this group. And I love the term Not Safe for Mom Group. I think that's a wonderful thing to dive into. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. And next we have Janelyn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janelyn Jimenez. I'm a Daemen alumni in 2016. I'm a single mom with a 4-year-old boy, and I'm very excited to discuss with all these fellow women about the changes that are happening in our society right now.
Thank you so much. And next we have Lucy.
Hi, my name is Lucy Turnage, graduate of Daemen College in '98 with a Bachelor of Science in Accounting. I come from Brooklyn, New York, but I recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a mother of two and currently working from home for Bank of America.
Thanks, Lucy. And last we have joining us today, Carolyn.
Thank you, Emily. My name is Carolyn Welch. I am the Executive Director at Weedy. I think we're probably the most known for the West Side Bazaar. I am the mother of 3 children who are 7, 8, and 10. So I'm working from home as well, and I think this is an extremely important conversation right now.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And I'll mention I'm also a mom of 2, and I think we're all dealing with so much right now. So this is a really important discussion to have today. So thanks again for joining us. So we first addressed women in work in the new normal, the topic, back in June, really somewhat into experiencing the pandemic. And a lot has changed since June. Things like new ways of parenting, having to come up with workarounds in regard to childcare, homeschooling, continual changes. It's kind of just always pivoting. So what are you doing to address that? And what do you see others doing? And this first question is for Amanda.
All right, thank you, Emily. Well, in June, I was still working remotely. I was working from home, as was my husband. We have 3-year-old twin boys, so having them in the house when trying to do Zoom meetings at the same time was challenging to say the least. But what we were able to implement was every Monday we would write our schedules on the refrigerator to know who needed the office when, because like I said, 3-year-olds love to dive into Zoom meetings. So if we needed a more confidential space, we would kind of fight over the office based on what was on the fridge. So that kind of helped balance it out. But I'm very much the person that needs my workspace and my home space separate. My husband enjoys working from home, but that's not me. So July 17th, I believe, is when daycare opened again. I was lucky and fortunate to be involved in their reopening process as a board member. So I felt very good about the kids going back. So that allowed me to return to my workspace, which was very much needed for me. Even in college, I couldn't do work in my dorm room. I had to have, the library was for studying and the dorm room was for my decompressing space. So the lockdown was even more of a struggle for me because I really need that quiet, creative space where I can think. When I was home working, I was thinking of this laundry needs to get done. I should switch out these clothes. I should straighten up the toys. And my brain just was all over the place. So it was good to go back, but I'm very aware that I'm fortunate to have access to and the ability to afford quality daycare. I think that's been a recurring issue. I have friends that struggle with that. And this pandemic has really highlighted the need, especially in Western New York, for quality childcare. I hate hearing the stories of women that had to make really difficult decisions with regards to their career and childcare. It was really disheartening. But I'm glad that this group is coming together to talk about it. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was to be really grateful and fortunate for the work environment I did have. I have a supervisor that's very aware of all the craziness I have going on outside of work and is extremely flexible. The daycare hours are abbreviated, so I have to pack up and leave earlier than 5 o'clock, which gives me that work guilt. I think I should be at my desk longer. But as long as my work gets done, my supervisor has been wonderful at this whole process. And I realize that's another privilege that I have with this. And I can't speak enough about being open about what you have going on outside work, how it affects the balance you need, and just continue to talk about it. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate how you know exactly the date that daycare opened. You remember it specifically. And you make a lot of good points. And I think whether you're somebody who is supervised or somebody who supervises others, you know, I think it's been so important to think about all the different challenges and have empathy and have understanding and, you know, really think about how you apply that to being a leader if that's the role that you serve. So thank you very much. And kind of going along with that, I'd like to talk about the toll that this kind of idea of balancing everything and balancing work and balancing home life demands and what the toll that's really taken on women. You know, women are not superhumans, that we're not an unlimited resource that can be used to support the greater good in times of need. Our careers, family, and personal health are being affected by all of this. So can you speak to this experience a little bit, Alexis?
Yeah, I think that we have bought into this very damaging narrative of supermom and being able to do it all. And that has not really done us any favors, because in trying to do it all and trying to be super and trying to be like a boss mom, people have given us, the patriarchy has given us so much responsibility that it's led to enormous burnout. And then coupled with that, take this pandemic where where the world was like, hey moms, you're going to handle not only your job, not only the job of teaching your kids and taking care of your entire house and the emotional weight of your family and, you know, everything else, and the worries of protecting your family from a deadly disease, you know, the weight of the world. We're going to expect you to uphold all of that for everybody and worry about your wider community at the same time. And we want you to do that without failing on at any of those things. And so no wonder slowly it all fell to pieces. And, you know, what I started to observe in my community of moms and within myself was an immediate breakdown. Like, it wasn't even very slow, actually. It was immediate. And so, in my personal experience, and I'll talk later more about what I saw among the thousands of mothers that I talk to all the time, I was completely tapped out, and I fell into a deep depression. And I have so many support systems. Like, I'm super privileged. I have a partner. He had a job that he didn't lose. I still had a job that, I could still earn money writing. And my kids weren't in school, but, it still was okay. Their grade level, so they were able to entertain themselves. They weren't babies. So coming from a place of extreme privilege, I was still very much suffering, because of this complete 180 that my life had taken. So I think that even in the best of circumstances, so many people really suffered, that realizing that we're not superhuman and that our resources were completely tapped out. And my entire trifecta of family, personal health, my kids' health, my mental health went down the drain at the very beginning of the pandemic.
And I think too, none of us or few of us, in my experience, having talked to others, have really had a chance to actually process everything. And, people mention about having, make sure you take time for yourself. And it's not about going to get a manicure, having a few hours by yourself. It's about having the time to actually sit and think about your feelings and think about all the things that have happened and how it makes you feel and your emotional and physical health, and just process all of that. And there's just no time. So one of the comments that I saw come in from a viewer is, how do we kind of restore ourselves? How do we maybe look at this idea of a superwoman and do some restoration, after dealing with all of this? Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Hi, this is Lucy. And I think that for me, one of the things that I get is I've found a tribe of women who have some unique and similar experiences to me. And so we get together impromptu, we get on a Zoom call, and we just talk about the things. And sometimes it's work related, where we're talking about our career and we're trying to strategize. And other times it's just like talking about the inequities that we are experiencing in different spaces, and saying, okay, you need to do this. I got this information here. You should do that. And so how I rejuvenate is just connecting with these women and knowing it's kind of like an affirmation that I'm not losing my mind, because they are going through it and experiencing those same things too. So that's what I do to kind of be restored. It's like, I just need to hear from somebody else that they're going through something similar.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I know I've heard anecdotally that it's been very difficult to get appointments to maybe talk to somebody for help. Appointments are booked all the way through January, February. So I would encourage those of you who have an employee assistance program to maybe look into what some of the options might be. I think it's important to kind of talk about what's going on, and maybe sometimes it's better to talk to somebody who can really provide you some good and healthy strategies to deal with everything. So just a little bit of advice. But for now, we're going to take a really quick break before we come back to the questions. So we're going to hear a message from the graduate programs at Daemen College. We'll be right back.
At Daemen College, we strive to help every student reach their educational and professional goals. With exceptional resources and one-of-a-kind learning experiences, our graduate and professional programs will put you on the right path to career success. Our graduate programs include applied behavior analysis, education, nursing, social work, and more. 7 of our 11 graduate programs are open to any undergraduate major. Explore our graduate programs today by visiting daemen.edu/graduate. At Daemen College, we strive.
So welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. Very important discussion. I wanted to pick back up a question about remote work. So we're seeing that the rise in remote work during the pandemic could boost women's participation and at the same time may jeopardize promotion or pay prospects. Flexibility comes at a cost, and fears about flexibility stigma account for employees' hesitancy to make use of flexibility programs. So this is a question for Lucy. In what ways might we use this flexibility to our advantage?
So the way I use it to my advantage is that I am working all the time. I have the opportunity to take small breaks and go for a walk with my kids. Or in this pandemic, in this work from home environment, I actually taught both of my kids how to ride their bikes. And so that is what I'm doing. I see these as small victories that maybe I might have missed these things if I was going and commuting back and forth to work. So I am very appreciative of the fact that I do have the opportunity, one, to be employed by an organization who appreciates diversity and promotes it, and two, to spend more quality time with my kids. But I say that, and I have spent nights sending out emails and working till 2, 3 in the morning. So really, it's for me to create better balance within myself and say, you know what, no matter, and this is part of like getting on the call with the women that I talk to. Sometimes when we're working really late, I have to remind them, and we remind each other that no matter what you do, you will always have things to do. You're never going to complete your to-do list. If you did, you wouldn't have a job. So I remind them to just make a list and get it done another day. So just being able to be mindful that, you can never finish all of the things. So appreciate some of the things that you have. Go for a walk when you have a meeting and you're just listening in on that meeting. Spend time with your kids, but in this time, it's been very, very, very tough, but I'm also very grateful that I am the lunch lady and the teacher and the employee and the speaker. So I say all that to say that it is a struggle, and I have little reminders to remind me that, one, appreciate everything that's happening, but two, also remember that I'm never going to finish everything. So.
That is a really good reminder. We also taught a child how to ride a bike throughout this experience. That was a really neat silver lining to experience. Thank you, Lucy.
Emily?
Yeah.
I'd love to speak to the promotion piece
Sure.
of that question too. And I do want to point out for everyone listening that Emily was promoted during this pandemic. I know that a lot of females promotions have gone by the wayside, but I do want to point that out. And I also want to point out that the promotion piece, women, I think in general, don't do a good enough job of promoting themselves, of documenting all the work you do, the progress. I'm sure a lot of us were more productive during this pandemic because we were pushing ourselves harder than anyone else is going to. So I think documenting all of your work despite everything that's thrown at you, and then you can reflect on it, highlight, and those promotions become more achievable. And promoting yourselves, I think, is the biggest thing, especially during these difficult times.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. My initial experience out of college was in fashion and beauty, and I'll never forget somebody told me that you really need to, as a woman in business, self-promote. And sometimes maybe it's not going to work out. Sometimes it might kind of backfire, but keep at it and always promote your wins and your the things that you've accomplished, and be your own publicist, really. And there's ways that you can do that on LinkedIn. There's ways that you can do that on social media. But I'll never forget that advice. And I feel like it's definitely something I've done. And it's almost like building your own brand. And someday that brand may get you that promotion for sure. Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, Emily. This is Lucy. And I also want to piggyback off of that because I do feel like I know myself. I definitely promote myself, and in this group of women that I connect with, and I have multiple groups of women that I connect with through this pandemic. I make sure to tell them and encourage them to do the same thing. I think that the inequities in promotion and pay raises is happening because I don't think it's because of a lack of promotion. I think there's just a lack of diversity and equity, because the people who are making the decisions about who gets promoted don't necessarily see the qualities that you have as something to be promoted for. So I recently read an article that was written by McKinsey. It's, they did a whole study, and it talked specifically to the difference between men and women being promoted in the during this pandemic. And men by far were getting promoted. I think it was like 60% had been promoted or gotten raises throughout this pandemic, where it was far disproportionate to women. And not only women, but women of color were at the bottom of that. So I do know the women that I surround my circle with. We are great promoters of ourselves. But again, if there isn't really this observation and this really intent to look at the successes and the quality of the people who are in the organization with a different lens, like not just seeing, okay, like this person ghosts with me, or this person does this with me. And so that's sometimes how promotions happen. It's not for lack of promoting or a lack of doing a great job that women aren't being promoted.
That's a really good point. I know Amanda and I have talked about this before. When you do have a seat at the table, what an awesome responsibility that really is, because you don't only all of a sudden have the chance to advocate for yourself, but you have the chance to advocate for and speak up for others. And that is a responsibility. So the more that women can find themselves in positions of leadership and being at the table to make the decisions and speak up for others, I think the better.
I'd like to piggyback on what Lucy was saying in terms of talking to other women, finding community, but also the self-promotion aspect. I think I found that there's a lot of negative self-talk right now, especially among women, and the fears around losing our jobs, or the fears of falling behind among all of our increased or new domestic responsibilities. So what's really helped me and a lot of the women in my community and in my working networks is talking each other up. Often we can't really see ourselves the way that our friends see us, and we get stuck in this like negativity loop. And sometimes when a friend reflects back to us what they see, like, I just really, did you notice that you were able to build like a huge network of X, Y, and Z, and you also published that article 2 months ago, and you did all of this while your kid was being diagnosed with blah, 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 and you're like, oh yeah, I did that. And we don't notice certain things about ourselves or that are positive. We're just it's just easy to think about all the things we didn't do. And sometimes when a friend who really knows us and knows us even professionally can say those things back to us, it gives you that lift to really keep going, and then also to be able to promote yourself, especially in a professional environment. So I found that to be really helpful.
That's really, really good advice. I think we are our own worst critics, and sometimes it does take somebody close to us, or even maybe not somebody close to us, just to point out all the wonderful things and meaningful and important things we do every day that we don't even notice or appreciate. Thank you, Alexis. So my next question, before the virus, women had been making major strides in the labor market and closing the wage gap. Currently, the unemployment rate for Black and Hispanic women remains above 10% and 7.3% for white women. Females between the ages of 25 and 54 are increasingly dropping out of the workforce. This is a question to Carolyn. In what ways can we address the gender regressive narrative?
So I did a lot of self-reflection on this question because I do think it's so very important. And one of the big conclusions I came to is that we were at a precarious balance to begin with. I have 3 children. I work a very intense full-time job, and I feel like my life was spent rushing to get the kids to school, rushing to get to work, and then rushing to get back, get the kids fed, do homework, go to whatever activity there was. So I think the reality is that this COVID and homeschooling and the change in the workplace has just finally pushed us all over the edge. And I think, like Alexa said, it was really quick. So I think what we need to do is be good self-advocates. I think this all comes back to the fact that we don't promote ourselves enough. We don't defend ourselves enough. We do not get up and say, you know what, this is too much. And I feel like we need to be very honest with ourselves, with each other, and truly advocate. There's so many pieces that could make this easier. There should be childcare subsidies. There should be additional help. There should not be this gender divide where it still falls on females to do the majority of the housework, the cooking, the parenting, and now the teaching. It's an impossible mountain to climb. And I think until we're honest with each other and stop thinking, oh, I can't talk to Lucy about how stressed out I am because Lucy just seems like she has it together. And we put these pictures on Pinterest of these great crafts that we've made for our kids and these made up holidays. Until we get to a point where we can say, you know what, my cup is full. And at the end of the day, you can sit down and say, these are the things I did accomplish, as opposed to always looking at what we didn't accomplish. Mom guilt needs to go away. We're all doing the best we can.
Yeah, you make some really good points about advocacy and, having an understanding of maybe what policies are maybe in play within the region that you live in or work in, and how that may relate to making it either a better environment for women or a, less friendly environment for women and girls. Making sure that you are using your voice through your vote to maybe support those who will push those policies that may help change the systems and the structures that are in place that are completely broken and part of the, the blame for all of this that we're experiencing. Because I think unless we do that and we explore advocacy, things won't change and the stats that we see won't change. And again, it goes back to leadership and who's in leadership.
Yep. And I think I would also say that I don't think the system's broken. I just think it was never created to support us in a way that's meaningful and helpful and allows us to both have a career, raise our family, and feel at the end of the day we are a good mom and a good employee. I was at, I think it was the HSBC Women's Celebration event for women in leadership, and the speaker made a great point. She said, you know what, there's only one you. And at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, there's only so much you can give to yourself, you can give to your children, and you can give to work. And we have to be a realistic person and identify there's going to be days that work gets more and your children get less, that you get more and children at work get less. And whatever that balance is, to be cognizant of it and recognize that it's constantly fluctuating. There's days we choose to be moms over being good employees. There's days that we choose to be good employees over being moms. And it's okay and it's normal. And we just have to get to the point where that's the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm seeing an interesting question come in. I'll put it out to everybody. What challenges have you faced? Ooh, let me pull it up. Hold on. What challenges have you faced in potentially being the sole voice at the table? What should companies, groups do to provide more space and not put additional onus on the odd person out or the woman, in other words?
So I can take this one. When I think about being the sole voice at the table, sometimes there is no voice at that table, and you're just aware that there's a table and a meeting taking place, and there is no person. And I know that a lot of organizations are looking to change that. Definitely Bank of America is making strides to do that. I know we mentioned subsidies, and they have lots of great subsidies and things that they are doing to support families in general with home care and specifically related to the challenges that we're having. But one of the things that I do is I keep in constant contact with mentors and people who may have a seat at the table to let them know what my concerns are, and I voice them. We have a networking group within Bank of America, and it's the Black employees in finance. And a lot of the people who are running the meeting, they happen to be men. And I will often challenge and say, when are we going to have more representation of females, Black females? Because while we do see, that there is some representation for Black males, there is even less percentage of Black women. And it's not that it needs to be either or, there just needs to be more. And so I challenge the status quo in public, in private, in chats. I make sure that I'm not the only one saying it, because I know that other people are feeling it, and I'll say what people are thinking in a very tactful and respectful way. But we have to raise the point, because sometimes we are not even in the room.
Absolutely, Lucy. Thank you. So this question is for Janelyn. Women make up 39% of global employment, but account for 54% of overall job losses. The virus has had a disproportionately detrimental effect on women. Can you talk about this experience and ways we navigate sudden change?
Thank you, Emily. In my case, like I said in the introduction, I have a 4-year-old son. I'm a single mom. So it had a lot of effects in my life, not only financially, since I was unemployed. I'm still unemployed since March, but also mentally, emotionally. And it's been hard. A lot of people seem to have it together through the pandemic, but in my case, I know I didn't have it together. Like Alexa said it at the beginning of the discussion, that sometimes we can go on depression, and that was my case. I'm fortunate enough to have a group of friends and family that kept me busy. They will always call me and do things to make sure I was on the right page. They always were on top of me. I got into fitness. That was my way to still be me, to not only be the mom, to not only be the daughter, because I have to take care of my mom as well. But it's hard. And a lot of people don't realize how sometimes, even though it was just in April, I remember being stuck in a hole, just thinking, for how long is this going to last? For how long am I going to be unemployed? And have my 4-year-old son with me all the time, not being able to go outside and play. Just the little things that you observe. And as a mom, it's hard to see a 4-year-old boy with a lot of energy, not being able to do the things he wants to do, he's used to doing. He's been in sports since he was 2 years old. Now to be stuck at home, and I don't encourage TV, so it was hard. It was really hard. But having support is very important, I will say. And like I said before, I'm fortunate enough to have a group of friends that I'm able to reach out to. And that was the way I navigated through the virus. And I'm still navigating through the virus, because a few days ago, I was still not in the best place, because sometimes you get in those places and you overthink everything that's happening. And a lot of people think it's financially. For my case, it's more emotionally and mentally, because the mind is such a strong tool that you have. It's such a strong tool that if you get yourself in that place, it's so hard to come out of it. So I tried my best not to stay in that place, to do something about it. And I was thinking about even going back to grad school and finishing. Well, I'm changing what I'm doing. I was doing preschool, nursery school. Now I might do higher ed. Even though I'm trying to look at the positive of the situation, it's hard, but I think it's the best we can do with what we're given.
Well, you know what? You have 5 new contacts and friends that you can reach out to. And I think that you're right. And Lucy mentioned it as well. And Alexis, of course, the networks that you have with people to just talk and reach out to. So you got 5 new people to add to those who you can connect with. So my next question is back to Amanda. There is a concept from our Leadership and Innovation graduate program called Leading with 3 Eyes Open, Self, Group, and System Awareness. The foundation of this is self-awareness. So in what ways are you fostering your own self-awareness during this time? How are you bringing this awareness to your group awareness, work, family, and life? And how does this relate to the geopolitical system awareness?
Thanks, Emily. It's a very complex question. Lots going on, but I think as I process this, my job inherently requires me to multitask all the time. Being a chief of staff, I like to joke and say I'm the jack of all trades, master of none, because I have to be really plugged into what's going on throughout the college, but be nimble to jump to whatever projects come on my boss's desk at that time. So multitasking is just constant, and I've always enjoyed that. Well, the pandemic kind of put that into overdrive and maxed me out. And I think what I had to take a step back and realize is my family doesn't need me to be perfect. They need me to be me. So that requires registering when I'm getting too stressed. My tone changes when I'm stressed. My reaction to different events changes when I'm stressed. And being a multitasker at a college, that impacts how I do my job. If I am on edge, I'm going to react poorly to different situations where that shouldn't happen. So I had to take a step back and ask for help. I was really trying to lean on my husband and have him help, which he is more than happy to do, but I wasn't always asking for it. So I think knowing when you need to ask for help and knowing when you're at your max was really key for me. And I also was fortunate to lean on my colleague, Sarah, who works in the office with me. When I knew I was maxed out and there's certain projects that I wanted to get to, but I wasn't going to be able to get to them at a certain time, I would lean on her, and she's phenomenal. And so she really allowed me to delegate a little more than I think I had been. So that self-awareness of registering when my stress was going to impede my ability to be a good mom and a good employee. And on the flip side of that self-awareness in others, knowing that I'm not the only one going through that if I sense something in colleagues, okay, they're stressed as well. Let's register their tone in a different way, process how they're reacting to situations because everyone's under stress. And then the larger system, the geopolitical system, I think the media and social media and all the information coming at us, as Emily mentioned earlier, there's no space or time to process. And I think often when we're crunched for time, we skim headlines or we process information differently. So I think having the self-awareness to be intentional in how we process what's going on and process news and process the opinions and everything going on, it's a lot to take in. So I think being very intentional and authentic with how we are processing what's going on and what lens certain people are looking at it through. There's a lot coming at everybody. So I think registering the stress in yourself and others and the world right now, you just have to pause and take a step back to make sure that you're doing what's right for you and for the people around you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I became very self-aware that at a certain point, I just needed to shut certain things off entirely. And that was for my own self-preservation. And, I've since revisited things here and there, but there was an understanding that if I don't give myself some space from certain things, it's going to be all consuming and overwhelming and, take me down a road that I can't go down right now. So having good self-awareness of what, works for you and what might not be the healthiest thing is a really important thing to have. Thanks, Amanda. So going back to Alexis, and Amanda, you kind of talked about this a little bit in terms of social media, but this is maybe talking about how to use social media in a different way. Alexis, through your social media outlets, you've been listening to hundreds of women across our nation discussing this moment in time. What are the most common reflections you are hearing, and how can we enact change in this moment?
So fortunately, the way that Not Safe for Mom group uses social media is for good, where people write in with their worries, thoughts, and feelings to connect to one another. And from that, what I've observed is an overwhelming sense of loneliness. People are really lonely and suffering from a breakdown of support systems across the board, from the connections that they had in the workplace and the structures that were set up in the workplace to, their community support systems and the structures within their own families, because now we can't access family members because of fear of viral spread. There's been a breakdown of partnerships. I get a ton of messages about partners who are unsupportive, partners who aren't listening or hearing the needs that we have for help, or cries out for help, or like ways that we could use some help around the house, or just miscommunication, partners willing to help, but people just not being able to communicate because times are so stressful. It's been a really bad time for marriages and partnerships, for sure. Mental illness and an inability to access care, which I think has been discussed during this panel, and people just not knowing where to turn for online therapy, I think is a little bit difficult for people to find, even though it is accessible virtually. I think is still kind of a murky area, and a fear of the kind of world that people are bringing their children into, and then this feeling of guilt of like, well, what did I do just now? Like, I had a baby and the world just feels so bleak. So it's a lot of negativity. And what helps is what the panelists have been saying, is reaching out to other women, to other mothers, to other people who are going through what you're going through, who can really identify the struggle and the moment that you're in, so that you know that you're not alone, that you're not alone in this moment of suffering, and that someone is there to listen to your cries, and that you're not just, sitting in the dark. And so I find that connecting to other people so that you're not feeling isolated is helpful. And sometimes when you're feeling really down, someone else is not feeling down and they can lift you up. So you're not all just like falling into a barrel of despair, that you can lean into someone else's stronger moments. But that connection with other folks who are going through what you're going through has been a real balm in times of hardship right now for a lot of mothers.
Thank you, Alexis. I actually know of a handful of friends or, just people in my network who have had children, during this experience. And I can't even wrap my brain around what that must be like, especially for a first-time mother and set of parents. Just thinking, Amanda and I made this joke, like that in the beginning stages of having to really be at home and be quarantined, it was like maternity leave all over again. It was this everyday cycle of the same day happening, Groundhog Day, sweatpants, messy hair, just chaos, and having no idea of when it would end. And that was really a little bit depressing and scary to kind of feel that way again. So I really have empathy for any, family who has experienced having a child and having to kind of deal with that and experience that through this.
I think a lot of women felt that, I think a lot of women have described this period as feeling like a postpartum, like that immediate fourth trimester period. No matter, how old your kids are right now, this has really thrown a lot of us back into that feeling of like sleepless nights and just a never-ending cycle of meeting other people's needs, and while our own needs go to the wayside. It's a very accurate description.
Absolutely. And probably all the more reason to explore things like self-care and talking to others and asking for help. And that relates to the next question that I have for Janelyn. Can you talk to us a little bit about overcoming the guilt and asking for and receiving help from others?
The word guilt. It took me a while to realize that I had a lot of mom guilt, especially because I just wanted 10 minutes to myself, and I feel guilty to wanting that because I have a 4-year-old boy. So he, especially in April, May, he was with me 24/7. I never had a minute, not even to use the restroom. He was always with me, and it's hard. I just wanted time to breathe. I just wanted time to hear myself think, and I couldn't do that. And it took me some time to realize that that's mom guilt, because I just felt so bad that I just wanted time for myself. And it took me a while to reach out. My friends actually reached out to me, and they told they will FaceTime me, and they will speak to my son. They would play a game with him through the phone, because I just wanted some time to myself. And sometimes it's hard to realize that you have that guilt. And sometimes it's even harder to reach out, because a lot of people will criticize you for wanting 10 minutes to yourself as a mom. It's like, well, you wanted to have kids. Now this is what it's like to have a child. But that's not true. And it's okay to have mom guilt. It's normal to have mom guilt. And it's just about having the right people to help you through it. Even if it's a phone call, or even if it's FaceTime, or even if it's after the child goes to sleep, staying up late and watching a TV show, just having your own time. And that's what I started doing. I will stay up late just because it was my only time I was able to be by myself, to be alone. So that's how I dealt with mom guilt.
Hi, I just wanted to piggyback off of that. I think having somebody in your space that is who thinks differently than you sometimes is a really good thing. Like, I heard a couple of comments about different situations that we heard on the call, and I am what you call an extreme optimist. Every time I hear something that's a situation, like, I think about like the flip side of it. Like, I can't imagine being at home in during the pandemic with a kid, but like, I think to myself, what a blessing it is that they had a healthy child, because some people are going through this, and maybe the situation doesn't always turn out that way. I tend to think about the most positive things when I hear the things. So if you ever are in a situation and you're like, Lucy, tell me the positive version of this, you can just text me, call me. I will always be able to give you a positive. Even when like we're up at 12 o'clock at night and you're like working really late, and you're like, oh, I have all this stuff to do. We are employed. We have jobs. It's a blessing to have a job. There are some people who would kill to have the positions that we have. When you're working from home and you're doing all this stuff and you're like, oh, I have this. You have a home to live in. You have a family around you. So I think it's just surrounding yourself with people who can build you up and kind of see the positive side of things. And you just don't want to get with a group or a team of people who's going to be like, yeah, that really is messed up. You need those people who are going to call and talk to your son, because they know you need a minute and understand it. And it's you said something, you were talking about like you stay up late because it's the only time to yourself. And I stay up late all the time. Like, all of the time I'm staying up late. I don't know why I do it. I just, like, my explanation is that my brain won't turn off. And so that I really am, I'm constantly thinking about things. So I just think of it as like, this is just my thing. Like, I just stay up. But when you said that, it was like, yeah, maybe I'm doing it subconsciously because it really is the only time I have to myself.
Lucy, I love your point about making positive associations to get out of this, the negativity spiral, which can be so damaging. And I think that's different from that positivity culture of like, but look on the bright side, but which is so annoying, because sometimes you want to be in a feeling, but trying to hold on to the good moments, I think that's different. And for a lot of people who are struggling with depression, it is that I've worked with, it is helpful to have those positivity moments. But I think it's also important to note that is a different message from the could be worser message, where people say, well, but just know it could be worse. You could be homeless, or it could be worse. You could have cancer, And so I think I think that's a really great idea to think about, to think about the wonderful things in our lives, but also not to diminish the feeling we're in by saying it could be worse.
That's a really good point, Alexis. Thank you. So going back to, a lot of the feelings that we have, going back to the idea that we don't really have a lot of time for ourselves and having to address the needs of others above our own. This is a question for Carolyn. Can you address the ways we can make sure our needs and identity don't get lost? How do we practice this belief in worth?
So I think that's like the absolute $1 million questions. As a mom, I've been kind of on the full spectrum of things. I was a stay-at-home mom for 7 years until I divorced, and then I went back into the workplace. I think all of the things that we've talked about are so important. Being honest with yourself, being honest with others, knowing when you need to raise that white flag, and being kind to yourself and being kind to others. I think, we have to really be careful that our expectations for ourselves as a mom and an employee, we don't put on other people. There's just various things that are really important to moms. It's really important to me that every night I read to my children. For some people, it's really important that they have their game night, whatever that might be. We need to stop this comparison between, oh, that's way better than what I do. Why am I doing this? I need to do more. I also think it's a really good point that Janelyn and Lucy both made. They stay up late so they get that time. For me, I go to bed when my kids go to bed, but then I wake up at 5:30, and that's when I start my day, so that I can get that time to myself to get things done, to get my head emptied for the day and ready for the day. But I do think just being kind and supportive of each other is the best way to make sure of it, and make sure that we're still being true to who we are, finding time for it. And part of that being kind and supportive is definitely something that we have to turn around onto ourselves and recognize that it's okay and it's good. Take that hour, take that 2 hours. You need it, because when your cup's empty, you can't do all of these things and run all of these roles.
Hi, this is Lucy. I wanted to piggyback off of that. My thing that I love to do is I love good food. I am a foodie. And so for me, in this pandemic where we can't really go to the restaurants that really, I will say to myself on Thursday, I am going to order this food. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to eat it and I'm going to enjoy it. So that is my, everybody has a thing, and that's my thing. Just, once in a while, being able to have a good meal that's not from a fast food place, that it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like we're a little bit going back to normal, to just be able to indulge in the things that we like, and that's what I like to do.
So now I'm curious, and I want to ask the rest of you, what are some of the ways that you kind of get back to yourself and your own identity?
I feel like this is the world's hardest question. For me, I love to read. And as I became a mom, that became increasingly difficult, because it's hard to retain what's happening and you're tired and you just fall asleep. But for me, finding time to snuggle on my couch with a good book is the most amazing thing I can do.
Well, my husband and I are big foodies as well, Lucy. So what we did during the quarantine, Emily knows this, since we weren't doing our date nights or getting out at all, we did movie theme nights. So we would pick a movie and plan a corresponding meal and cocktail, dessert, to all go with the movie's theme. So we did breakfast at Tiffany's one night and did French toast and mimosas. We did Goodfellas one night and did spaghetti and meatballs and wine and charcuterie. So we would do that every Saturday. So it was kind of something to look forward to. We would, after the kids would go to bed, we'd say, all right, what are we going to do this weekend, to try to have something to look forward to at the end of the week. There was no going anywhere other than just, hikes with the kids. So it was our own little date night at the house, but we got to look forward to a special meal at the end of the week and kind of keep some creativity and fun throughout the craziness.
And I have to say, Amanda, there are many times, because I saw that on Instagram, that I would be making mac and cheese and chicken nuggets again, and I would have mom guilt.
The kids still got that. The good stuff was just for my husband and
I. To get back to like a feeling of being in myself and my own identity on a daily basis, for me, it was just like waiting till everyone was asleep and then watching the shows no one lets me watch, and like having a glass of wine or tea and having my heating pad on my back and just being like, oh, this is my time, and staying up till 1 a.m. doing that. And that just felt really luxurious and, and just for myself. And then as we've gotten, a little bit less restrictive, when New York City was doing better, I was able to take dance classes again outside. I do aerial dance, and that has, that made me feel really like me. But unfortunately, I think that's going to go away as it gets colder. But yeah, dance is how I really feel like I'm back in my body.
In my case, I would say working out. I really miss the gym. I started committing myself to being healthy at the beginning of the year. And then when March came along, the gyms were closed. So I started to do something different. And my friends joined me. So now we do like a Zoom meeting or FaceTime with like a few of us, and we all work out together to the same video at the same time. And then we will also make sure that we have a glass of wine or beer, choice of drink, through Zoom. Like, it was just our way to have a drink together without being together. And that's what I did usually to make sure, remind myself who I am, and I can just stay sane.
Thank you for sharing all those things. So this question is for Lucy. Some have described this experience as a reset. Crisis is a catalyst for change. How are you building on this concept? What has gone well for you, and what are you hoping for the future?
I'm using this time to reflect on what it is that I really want from my career, personally, and as a mother. And so I'm using this time to be able to like journal and write down the things that I want, and actually make a concerted effort to do that. Some of the things that you need to do in order to be successful is you need to network. And so that I'm home and not physically in the office, having to commute back and forth. It's like, if I'm going to be working till 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, then why not use a half hour during the day to network? And so those are the things that I am doing to use this as a reset, like to be reflective, to write, active things that I need to do to advance in my career. I'm doing those things, I'm participating in it, and it's really great. Like, just being on this panel has been wonderful. I'm also going to be participating with Daemen College on another venture. And so it's wonderful that everybody has gotten really into the Zoom thing, because now I can participate and volunteer for different things that I wouldn't be able to because I'm physically not close. And so this has been really wonderful to help me get back to what I love doing, which is giving back, volunteering. And so this has been amazing for me for that reason.
That's really good to hear. So I have a couple questions that aren't actually on the list, and I wanted to kind of get everybody's thoughts on these. So one of the things that I look back and reflect on is how there were certain mentors that I've had that, I will still to this day go back to for advice or help or, just stay connected with. And so my question to all of you would be, if there's individuals, women who are maybe several years behind the point that you are in your career, and maybe have not had children yet, what's advice that you would maybe give to them that maybe you wish somebody had given to you before you hit the point where you're at right now?
this is Lucy. So no one gave me this advice, but I instinctually knew to appreciate where I was at the time that I was in it. When I was single, appreciate the freedom that being single gives you. Like, I would go on vacation by myself and I would go out to dinner by myself. And I knew that there was freedom in doing so. And I knew that at some point I may or may not meet someone and I may or may not have kids. But when I do, that sleeping in till like 2 o'clock on an afternoon on a Saturday and watching Law and Order because it happens to be my favorite addictive show, like, I was not going to be able to do this. And so just appreciate the time and the freedom you have to go to brunch with your girlfriends and hang out and get your mani and pedi without having to synchronize the schedules of your kids, your husband, and everyone around you. So just appreciate where you are, because you can always be like, I can't wait to do this, I can't wait to do that, but really just focus on the joys of where you are right now. And I try to do that now because my kids in this pandemic have now started sleeping in my bed. And so I am appreciating the time that I am in now, because at some point they will not even want to speak to me. So I am loving this for the moment that it is and appreciating for it is for what it is. So just enjoy where you are and don't look forward, don't look backwards, just love where you are.
That's really good advice. Appreciating the independence. And boy, I had a child in my bed last night too, Lucy.
I have the same. I had a child in my bed last night, and for many nights prior. I think advice I would give, and I don't think people gave this to me in a way that was strong enough, was to use this time. Don't say now is not the right time. Now isn't the right time to go to school and get another degree. Now isn't the right time to move. Now isn't the right time to do this. And I always kind of had these self-defeating excuses. And now as a mom, there are things I probably never will do. So, take opportunities, go out there, take chances, try all of those crazy things to make sure you find time for that.
I would say don't be a martyr and don't try to, muscle through everything on your own. Accept help when it's offered and create as many support structures and scaffolding as you can when you're anticipating becoming a new mom. One of my biggest regrets was when my aunt had offered to come stay with me in the first few weeks of having my firstborn. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about having another person in the house. It'd be weird. Like, we've never lived together. And I ended up having an emergency C-section, and none of my family came to help me. And my husband had no idea what I was going through. And it was a complete mess. And it really set me up for a terrible postpartum experience. So, if I had just said yes to maybe imperfect help, it still would have been help. And I think that's a really good lesson, is to take the help when it's offered, and to set yourself up for success by creating support structures around you.
I think some advice that I would have liked early in my career is that your professional path may change, and that doesn't mean failure. I came into, I started my career in college athletics and shifted to a position in higher ed. I always thought my career would just be straight in college athletics, and just circumstances arise, opportunities come about that make you kind of shift gears and change your path. And that's not a bad thing, to kind of be open to new opportunities, open to changes in what you perceived your path to be. And that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. So I think that's something that younger me would have liked to hear.
So another question I have is, and I know, Alexis, you probably have a lot to share, but do any of you have any good resources that you might want to pass along to those who are listening in today?
If you would like me to share, I can.
I would love you to.
Yeah, I have on my website, I have a long list of, it's on notsafeformomgroup.com under help and resources for mental health. And I mean, a lot of them are directed for motherhood and parenting and postpartum, but there's also some great resources like Psychology Today and Open Path Collective, a lot of online therapy resources, even the Department of Health and Human Services National Helpline, online services for addiction and recovery, AA meetings, and an online intergroup for Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a whole bevy of options for different, I guess, for different issues and challenges that we all could be going through. And then there's lots of things on motherhood and postpartum that you'll find as well for maternal mental health support and beyond. So there are many options out there online. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to find, but I've done some of the work for you. If you go to notsafeformomgroup.com and then help and resources, you can find a good list there.
Thank you very much, Alexis. And another question I have to the group, we can't just do this ourselves. I think we have to have allies in the things that we want to achieve and when we want to advocate for ourselves. So does anybody have any thoughts on what advice they would give to those who want to serve as allies to women?
So my advice would be to just tell somebody that you want to help. Like if you want to help someone, just put yourself out there and say, I want to help. I found an ally here an advocate here when I moved to Charlotte because one of the people that I work with happened to be starting at the bank around the same time that I was. And she's been such a great resource in terms of bouncing ideas on like how to interact with my manager, and she's also a mom too, so she sends me over great activities to do with the kids. And in this pandemic, we've made pretzels, we've made donuts. We're going to make bread soon. So she gives me all of these things and different activities that I could do with my family. And so I consider her to be an ally just by forwarding me things that would help kind of make this, this time that we're in just a little bit more fun by spending quality time with the kids. But I would just say, just offer because it doesn't hurt.
Thanks, Lucy. And I'll add to that. I think one of the things that I was most impressed on the last preparation for the first panel that we did about this topic is when one of my male coworkers asked the question, what can he do to help? And in what ways can he help support women? And I thought, that's a fantastic question. And I'm so glad you asked that. And one thing I will say is, wherever you live, there might be organizations that support women and girls. Here in Western New York, it's the Western New York Women's Foundation, for example. There's many others. And organizations like that do a lot of advocacy work, and they are looking to forward social and public policy that is supportive of women and girls. And so those are organizations that I would suggest if you want to be an ally, take the time to jump online, investigate what they're doing, their events, their programming, the calls to action that they put out there, and see maybe in what ways you can get involved. I think that's a really easy way to get educated and to understand some of the ways that you can serve as an ally. So I'll just put that out there as well. Well, we're coming to the tail end of our discussion. So I just want to thank all of our panelists so much for what is such a timely discussion and an important discussion. And each of your unique perspectives are so appreciated. And I know that there's probably a lot of people watching that can identify and relate to everything that you've shared. So I really appreciate that. I'd like to encourage every woman out there to explore social and public policy issues more closely, and use our current circumstances to empower yourself to work towards positive change. While we may feel pulled in a million different directions, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for us to advocate for ourselves, how important it is for us to advocate for social and public policy that supports women and girls. And while you might not feel like there is anything left to give on some days, it's really important to participate, to work towards change. So with that said, I'd like to encourage, like I said, all allies of women and girls to pay attention to policy issues, continue advocating for positive change as well. Your voices are really important as well as ours. So all of this can start by using your right to vote to be your voice, and be part of positive change and electing those who represent all of us. Diversity of perspective and representation matter. So please remember to vote on November 3rd. You can also learn about the many ways to support women and girls here in Western New York by connecting with the Western New York Women's Foundation, and that's westernnewyorkwomensfoundation.org. So thank you again to all of our panelists. I'd like to thank support from the graduate programs at Daemen College for helping support this virtual panel series. And if you'd like more information about Daemen College, you can go to daemen.edu. So my advice to everybody is to keep moving forward, support one another, remember to reach out for help and support when you need it, and keep making sure to make your voice heard and advocate for positive change. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you for joining us.
At Daemen College, we understand your college journey may be different this year, and we make it easy. With no SAT or ACT required, 4-year tuition guarantee for students who apply early decision, and holistic admissions reviews, the application process is simple. Plus, Daemen offers over 65 undergraduate majors and programs, so there's something for just about everyone. Not to mention, our athletics program is Western New York's premier Division II team. Visit daemen.edu/admissions to get started.